What did C.S. Lewis mean by the abolition of man? In his book, The Abolition of Man, it's really three lectures. One is on the abolition of man, the last chapter. The prior one is on the way. And the one before is about men without chests. I did some prior videos on that. But the abolition of man is kind of this fascinating phrase that doesn't quite make immediate sense. We are still alive. How are we abolished? How are we destroyed? And what he's getting at, what Lewis is getting at, is that as we live in this new scientific world and we begin to study all the things around us, we begin to reduce them from their essential meaning. We become reductive. Everything is about quantity, measurement. Everything that we study is just to measure one thing to another. It's all relative in that sense. This is this distance relative to this distance, this size or this velocity or this volume or whatever. But when we study these objects and quantify them, which is really all we can do, it seems, we reduce the whole of nature to just mere analytic stuff. It is just something that we, kind of like a Play-Doh we can form and change. But as we do that, we begin to think of ourselves in the same way. We're just this stuff, biological stuff. There's no deeper meaning beyond our instinctual drives. There's no deeper meaning. There's nothing to see through in us beyond our sort of mere animality. And so we need to live our lives through a sort of quantitative scientific analyses. There's nothing really deep about us except for we are some biological stuff connected to other biological stuff by a biological connection. And that means whatever else we are instinctual creatures. And so our sentiment, our values change according to our needs, according to different cultural times and places. There's nothing really stable about them. It's just mere nature. There's nothing to see through. If we're a window and we look through ourselves, there's just another window to see through. There's nothing there. There's no deep meaning, no deeply real something. By contrast, Lewis thinks that there is something greater than this. If I were to quote one of my favorite thinkers, George Grant, he says, "Beyond space and time there is order. Beyond space and time there is order. Beyond measurable quantities there is an order behind it all." Lewis calls this the Tao, by which he means natural law. That there is an order to everything. It's not just created values. It's not just quantity. There is, beyond all the things that we see, all the phenomena in the world that we look at, there's something deeply true about these things. A tree has purpose. It doesn't just have biological traits. Its goal is to grow from a seed into a tree for the effect of beauty and for the, correlation of all the different kind of plant life around it. There's a purpose to it. It has something to it that is not purely quantifiable. Likewise for us, we have an efficient cause or a final cause. The efficient cause we might say is God. The final cause we might say is human flourishing. To live in a certain way that is described as happy or blessed, which is defined again by living a virtuous life from beginning to end. And those virtues are not values. Not the values that Lewis is talking about anyways. A value is something that is merely constructed by scientific elite. And that elite want us to live a certain way, to make the economy work this way, to make science work that way. We are more or less manipulated by these elite who want us to think scientifically, efficiently, to be better workers, to be another brick in the wall. And yet, if we are part of an order that goes beyond space and time, part of something that is more than this, if we are called to something greater, then this kind of life is very constraining. It's the 9-to-5 life where you're nothing more than an efficient technical creature that accomplishes one task to another. Beyond that, there's no purpose. There's no real happiness, because happiness is a phenomena of your biological or chemical condition that way. There's no deep virtue that leads to lasting happiness, a life that could be called happy. By conquering nature through the analyses of nature, quantifying it, forgetting the particular qualities that make nature mysterious and beautiful, that make nature dance, that allow us to be part of a world that has an order beyond space and time, a sort of beauty beyond the things that we see. When we begin to live this way, we more or less abolished what is greatest in us. That is, our ability to imagine, to believe, to hope, to dream, to use reason in a way that transcends efficient technique. We simply become just like anything else, a sort of system to be controlled for greater efficiency. And society is therefore constructed around greater levels of technique, efficiency, you're an instrument in order to get at some economical or scientific end. You're an experiment. You're a mere nature. And by conquering nature in this way, we are conquered by it. We've become basically nothing. There's nothing great in us. There's nothing mysterious in us. There's nothing wonderful in the world. If I walk through a forest, I'd never expect to see a unicorn or a fairy or an angel. I live in a world without mystery, without the sacred, without purpose, without meaning. I'm outside of the Tao, in Lewis's language. I'm living a life of mere nature. But if I walk inside the Tao, if I understand myself as part of a greater order, some created order in which I exist and live and move and have my being, then everything is mysterious again. Everything has deep meaning again. Everything transcends the mere quantity into a quality that transcends counting, weighing, measuring, because beyond space and time there is order.